Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. I've had this car now for 8 months and I have done just over 12,000 miles, so I've driven it quite a bit and I absolutely love this car. And if you are thinking about just getting a Tesla, my advice is just do it. But it's not perfect, and there are a few things that are niggles that I've talked about in other videos, but this is my top 10 list of things that I wish my car had. So some of these are hardware features and some of them are software features, and I'm not going to go through them in any particular order. This is just as I've thought about it and I've gone at it. So let's start off with one of the software features, which is I would very much like it if there was a speed limiter mode. So we have got fantastic autopilot. It's not self-driving, but it's reasonably close to it. The car will go along the motorway with cruise control on. It will stop completely and pick up again, so it's brilliant through traffic. It will steer itself, but you don't always want to have the car driving itself. Now, I understand that if you're in maybe America as this car is being developed, you do think the car should drive itself everywhere, but some of us do actually quite like to drive ourselves, or having the car constantly trying to accelerate up to a speed, even if that speed is 30 miles an hour, isn't always appropriate. So a speed limiter where you are still in control of the car, but it won't go above a particular point. This is something that I've used fairly extensively in other vehicles that I've had where it has it. This doesn't, and I wish it did. It's just a simple software thing. All I need to do is get it so that instead of setting you to always try and go at a particular speed, it will stop you going above a particular speed. We even could use the nice little stalk here so that, I don't know, instead of pressing down once and then twice to be able to put autopilot on, what if it was push it up to engage the speed limiter mode? It's just something as simple as that, really. It'd be very, very, very useful, especially if you are driving through roadworks and things like that, where you really don't want to go above the speed limit because you're going to get one of those horrible, nasty, flashy cameras. The second one of my software features that I wish we had is probably going to be a bit on the controversial side, and that is I would very much like adjustable regen. And no, I'm not talking about the fact that I can currently go from standard drive to chill drive and that adjusts the amount of regen a little bit. I'd like to be able to get it so that you could switch regen down by 50% or switch it off completely. Having a car with flappy paddles behind the steering wheel, which of course we don't have, actually does make a difference. So I was driving Wifey's high-end Ioniq earlier and really enjoying the sensation of being able to basically just let the car roll along without having to have my foot on the throttle pedal, without having to modulate the position of my ankle to be able to get the thing to coast. Just let the car roll. And there's quite a lot of time where I do get the Tesla so that it is coasting, but I'm having to adjust my foot to be able to do so. You can get a third-party solution, so you can get the sexy buttons from a third party, and that basically goes in and you can adjust what those buttons do when you push them. But I don't particularly want to stick third-party buttons onto my car, and I certainly don't want to hack into the CAN bus. So it'd just be nice if Tesla treated us a bit more like grown-ups and said, okay, you decide. Now, I get it. This is about regen being very important with regards to the amount of range that the car gets. I understand that, but this car's got a lot of range, okay? A lot of range. And we're not talking about it where you are suddenly not regenerating and you're using the disc brakes because you've let the thing go too far. You moderate your speed, of course you do, but it'd just be a nice feature to have so that we had the choice. The third software feature that I would absolutely love them to have, and this probably isn't for me, but we have got this actually rather good UI, and I have just had the latest software update drop, which actually put a huge number of new features on, which are absolutely fantastic. But how can I put it? They're all on the screen. Now, if you're going to buy a Tesla, you've got to accept the fact that you are basically buying a car where most things are run through the screen. And personally, I think that's a good thing. I really like the minimalist interior where everything is just off one giant screen. As you can see, I am here at the beach at Pennon on a bit of a blowy day to be able to shoot this video, but the screen works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody. So one thing that they really could add in, and again, there's going to be people shouting at the screen, is Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now, here's what I think it could do. So you have got, obviously, the information screen on this side. You're going to need to be able to keep that. But there is basically a big square screen here where instead of me having to go into Spotify and fiddle around with whatever else that I'm doing there, where I actually have to have a profile for it, or going into phone, or going into whatever else that I'm doing, you basically plug your phone in or wirelessly have it connected, and all of the things that you are used to having are just there at your fingertips. We have got this really big screen, and most of us are used to carrying around a phone that does everything that we want, and the two of them can't speak to each other as smartly as so many other cars can. Again, it's probably only there as a stepping stone so that people actually get used to the way that the things are built, but there are times where I honestly think it could be quite useful. And again, if you are a Waze user, you like to navigate using Waze, you really need Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. So it's another one of those things that you could enable it, they just haven't. Probably top of the list of the hardware changes I'd like to see on the car involves the rear seats. Now, this is genuinely a fantastic place to travel. In my Model Y, I have got an almost absurd amount of space in the back of this car, and you have got this huge glass roof which is still a little bit covered in birdie plops, but there's one thing that's missing, and it's rather fundamental. So actually, I am sat on the right hand seat and it is heated, and the middle seat is heated, and that seat is heated, and I even have nice airflow vents here to be able to blow cold air, warm air, and there's some more underneath the car as well. But if I want any of those things switching on, I have to basically ask the people in the front if they can switch them on, please. There are no controls for climate control in the back of this car, none. So heated seats, no. Climate control, no. Now you could say we actually need to have an additional climate zone back here, but actually what I'd really like are some controls. Now on the doors we have got a switch for the windows, and obviously we've got the button to be able to get out of the car, but we don't have anything to control the heating, and there's quite a few aftermarket things that you can add on here. And I've actually had, it must be half a dozen approaches now from companies wanting to send me a screen to install there and do a review and tell you guys all about it. But there's two reasons why I haven't done it. One, you have to hack into the CAN bus to be able to make the thing work, and I'm not actually prepared to do that yet. We might think about it. But the second one is relatively simple. So this is like driving the Starship Enterprise. I'm a big Trekkie fan, and you know, it's the Tesla prize, but the screen that you can buy that goes on here is low resolution running Android, and I don't actually get it. If you're going to get a third-party screen, at least try and get it so that it isn't just some kind of, you know, different system add-on. You obviously now can get a screen in the refreshed Tesla Model S and the Tesla Model X, which again I can't actually buy currently in the UK even if I wanted to, but they now have a rear screen in them. The Y and the X, the Y and the 3 also need to have a screen. It's a really big thing if you've got rear passengers. Let us control our own temperature, please. Next on my list of software features, and this is quite a biggie, is so I am in Scotland, in the United Kingdom, in Europe, and what I would really like is full self-driving. self-driving. Now, you're probably saying, but Ian, you can have full self-driving. You can pay them £6,800 or whatever it is, and they will enable FSD. No. The FSD that we can get in Europe is, how can I put it, bobbins. It is neutered. It is handcuffed. It doesn't do what FSD does in America. So you see all of these other videos of people driving their cars completely hands off, and you don't need to touch the wheel and you don't need to go down there and touch the pedals, and you can just sit there and you watch the car doing its whirly thing, and it's going around the city. So imagine that this gorgeous bit of Scotland is actually a big city. It detects everything and it drives itself. And we simply aren't allowed to have that in Europe. We're not allowed to have it. The regulations, I think it's the United Nations UNECE regulations that have been adopted all the way across Europe, basically say that automated driving is evil. It is literally the devil taking over your car. So we're even in the ridiculous place where in the UK, Ford have just been given the go-ahead to have it so that you can drive along without having to have your hand on the steering wheel all the time. Ford, right? Not Tesla, Ford. The regulations are silly. So this isn't really a complaint at Tesla, but they could be smarter with the way that they are lobbying, because there is no way on this planet that the Ford Mustang Mach-E thing is technologically superior to my Tesla. So come on, Elon, get on with it. Let's have it so that we can actually fulfill all of these cars' potential in Europe, please. And the last one of the software updates that they need to do is actually something that's already on the car, which is we have got matrix headlights on this Tesla Model Y. The problem is they're not switched on. So I've got fabulous looking lights which can project the word Tesla onto a wall when you switch the light show on, right? Literally shouting, "Hi, I'm a Tesla." What they don't do is steer the main beam around other cars when you're going at them. So the hardware's there, the software says no. Why? I mean, it's one of these things where I read that it was something about the way that they're doing things in America, and America can't quite have it yet, so we can't have it either. But it's just a bit stupid. It's there on the car, just switch it on. One hardware change I would like to see is a change to the seats. And it's not that the seats are not comfortable. I have done all day journeys driving this car and not had any particular problems at all. But I do get quite a few questions in the comments asking about the seats, and there's just a couple of fundamental things that I think are missing. Well, okay, related to the seats, number one is there is not enough height adjustment in the seatbelt. So if you've got a short driver or a short passenger, you simply can't adjust that low enough to be able to give them enough adjustment. I would dearly love there to be some more under thigh adjustment on these seats. That is something that is missing from a comfort perspective, and I know for taller people, these headrests here, I actually like that a lot, but I know there's a whole load of you where that is really uncomfortable because you can see the angle that it points out at. You cannot adjust these. So it's another one of these things where for the average user, these seats are fantastic, but they could be better, and other manufacturers do make comfier seats. If you've seen my how-to series on the Tesla, you will have seen me talking about the suite of cameras that's all around the car, which of course it uses for everything from security to autopilot and so on. The front cameras sit up here in this pod on the windscreen, and there's actually 3 of them. But one thing that this car is missing, and it really is a big omission, is a camera down here. It needs a low down camera for parking. And as any of you who have got a car that doesn't have ultrasonic sensors, so mine has got ultrasonic sensors, but if you haven't got these, you're really missing a camera under there, because when you start driving up to something like this fence post here, you've got a bit of a problem, because those cameras up there simply can't see it. And it's just one of these things where, considering how many cameras they fitted to this car, and just as a reminder, that's a rear-facing camera, that's a forward-facing camera, and there's another one on the boot. So they've got all these cameras, but there's just one missing on the front. And it's one of these odd omissions, because they can't have missed it out because they haven't thought of it, because of course they have. It's just not there. As I understand it, the hardware revision 4, HW4, I've seen it referred to, is going to fit a low down camera, and hopefully then we could also have the 360 degree bird's eye view that my Volvo was absolutely brilliant at. Again, it's an odd omission, and I don't understand why. And the oddest of the lot, and this in the winter genuinely drives me nuts, and it's this: why is there not a light under the charge flap? We have got little multicolored light thing here which shows you the status of the charging, but there's no ring around that. You could have a glowing ring around there, or I don't know, a little light under the bottom of the flap maybe, or something like that. In the winter you cannot see where the cable is supposed to go, because you've got a black cable and you've got black plastic surrounding it, and it's all a bit of a pain in the bum. So it's another one of those little things that they've just missed out. And I'm shooting the last one at home because this is quite difficult to do where I was on the beach, but the last of my hardware features that is missing is relatively simple, which is the frunk, or considering that we call this the bonnet in the UK, does that mean that this is the fronnet? The fruit? Whatever. Anyway, this is the only bit of the car that hasn't got power on it. So I have just pressed the button there to pop it open, and I've had to lift the thing up myself. So it's possible that you could push the button on the app or something like that, but then even better, you're not supposed to do what I'm about to do, which is shut the thing with one hand. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to have a hand on either side of the T, because apparently it's quite soft. And you know what? I can kind of feel that. So here's the point. Why, oh why, oh why can't we have a power lift for that? And you can get one, but you have to go to a third-party provider to get it. So it's just another one of these, come on Tesla, other people are already making these bits for you, just fit it to the car. So before we go, we could talk about a few honourable mentions, I suppose. I have in the past talked about potential for air suspension, because the ground clearance of the car actually isn't as great as you might think that it is, but on reflection, I'm not actually that fussed about it. I know that quite a few people have said to me, Ian, you really must be a fanboy because you're not talking about the view out the back. And I know it looks like a bit of a small thing there, but honestly, it's not that big a deal. And I've had other cars where the view out the back is quite poor, or frankly, the view everywhere is poor. I can see everywhere in this. So again, it really doesn't bother me. Even the glove box isn't that big a deal, because I know people say there's no button for the glove box. How do you open the glove box? Well, how often do you actually go in your glove box, guys? Really? I mean, they could put one of those push button things on it and they could go in and get it exquisitely down, but how many cars do you get it where half the glove box is missing because it's a fuse box? And even then, you dump things in there and then you forget about it. So I don't really see that as being a particular problem. And that's it for this video. Please tell me in the comments what you think of my choices. If there's something on there that you think is crazy and shouldn't be, tell me about it. If there's something obvious that I've missed out, tell me about it. And I'll see you very soon back here on Just Get a Tesla.